when you said you're a helpaholic,
The first thing I want is, at the beginning, when you said statistics, and that I really would like to hear
It's kind of like funny. It's a fun activity. This is fun, not this is serious.
But that's something that came to mind.
I never thought about it.
Articulating what we want and having transparent dialogue. I think all of these are about dialogue, right?
All right, everybody got their questions ready? I'm going to actually kick things off just to make it even easier on you guys. So you have your questions, write them down, keep them in your heads. But, I wanted to ask all of you guys, as my esteemed panel members here, I kicked off the meeting earlier today talking about these statistics and the fact that, if we look at where we're at in 2017, we're actually at only 22% of leadership positions being filled by women. So I am curious if you have an opinion on what you think companies should be doing differently to try to make faster progress, and why haven't we gotten further in the year 2017? So anyone have a thought on that?
Thanks, Mandy. I think it's about, first, it's dialogue and it's access for females to senior leaders, and women's leadership programs like this. Pepsi ran a power program, which really demystified what success is in the workplace and the differences between women and men. So activating dialogue and creating career paths for females, especially in Erica's example where you don't have a lot of females in supply chain, and what are you doing to really fill that pipeline? And our job in HR is to ensure that there is always a pipeline. Starting that pipeline from a campus program to mid-career hires, and making sure that that you just have an environment that supports work-life integration.
Yeah, and I think just one thing I would add on to Barb's comments are that, so we had Power that was more focused around the sales organization, but we did do a women in operations. So you have very few, women in plants, but you can connect them together. And I think the other sort of key point is we just launched this re-entry. So if you've gone out from work and you've had a child, but you want to get back into work, we offer, you can come in part-time, you can come down 2 days a week, you desk share, those sort of things. But it's how do you re-enter into the work organization when you've taken some time off, right, to care for your family? I think that's important.
I think the answer to that question has to begin with determining the cause of why aren't there more women. And I think we do some of that to ourselves, and I think you actually, Erica, talked about it. You have to have a voice. And I think, there is still a lack of awareness that women would like and are more than capable to move in higher level positions, but that doesn't exist in many of the decision makers' mind. That there are these resources we are not using. We are just moving men up, and we might miss some of the more qualified and motivated women. So I think it has to start with, creating more awareness about that we are not where we could be, and how that would benefit the organization.
Do you have something? Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I really liked the last talk especially. I liked all of the talks. It's been such a great day. But the comment that it's about fact, right? It's about knowing your field. I don't care if it's a man or a woman. You know your field. You love your field. You don't apologize for it, and you go after it. I think it starts with all of you. I'm not in the business field, so I don't understand how this all works. But it's all within you, and you have the access to it. And you don't need to apologize for it or be fearful. I think I have a very nice advantage in what myself and Mihaela do. We don't only see patients in the clinic, but we see very sick patients in the hospital. And we see what people go through. And it gives you a huge perspective on your life and how short life can be and how quickly it can be taken away. That and having my 2 children, big perspective, right, of what's important. So you like something, you know your facts, you excel in it, and you will excel. And it doesn't matter, the other stuff. Who thinks what, who's a guy, who's a girl. It doesn't matter, not at all. And what you know is what's important.
I have one. Yeah, I have one more thought that goes with that. I think Hillary said this morning that sometimes women are not that nice to other women when she was talking about social media. And I think that is another way of how we can change things, to be more purposeful about supporting each other. And it also reminded me of a very well-known quote by Madeleine Albright, who was the State of Secretary for the United States. And she said, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women.
So, very, very interesting indeed for me and Christina to be here, because we basically take care of the patients and we are doing this with passion. We are trying to live in this bubble away from, administration and business world. Unfortunately, with the new healthcare that has become a health business, we are now forced to look at what we are doing from a different perspective. And me personally, I realized that I wished I was going to impact the life of my colleagues and through that the life of the patients at a different level than just every day what I'm doing with my patients. And about 7 years ago, I was offered a position of management that I turned down because I felt, this is not me, this is not what I'm interested in, and it's all full of BS, or I can use bullshit, because I have no problem using the F word, as in Romanian fuck means I do. So yes, every other word would be F word. So I realized that, Ivona, you are right. We are not there in leadership because we don't want to be in the position where we have to have the tough skin. We have to, order people around and be perceived as bitches, or, other positions that, imply you not being who you are. And maybe we have to learn from our male colleagues that, shaking it off and, not ruminating over things and not taking things personally will put us in places where we can bring the compassion, we can bring the heart, but we can still lead, and maybe even better than our male partners. And who took the position, of course? My male partner, that now I'm like every day, why is he doing that stupid thing? So why didn't I take that position? I think that's where we have to start.
Great comments, guys. All right, let's take our first question from our audience here. Who wants to be the brave soul? All right, right over here. And we've got our runner. Run, Dad,
The
run.
mic is live, so you don't have to push buttons.
Okay, so the question is, and I know a lot of us in this room feel this, how do we get out of, as women in business, feeling guilty? Feeling guilty and feeling as if, my partner and I, that, she works on one half of the state and I work on the other half of the state. We're both mothers of 2 small children, and we say, gosh, we'll never be able to win in both, okay? And we're never going to win a Mom of the Year award or anything like that. How do you get past the guilty feelings of not being able to be like the men?
Marshall and I had a great conversation. I'm going to punt this to him because we talked about this at my table. All right, but I will start with, you need help. You need a network. You need a foundation, and so I'm gonna punt to him.
I would really drop all this perfect crap because, you have a 13-year-old daughter and you work full time. She's going to look at you and say, you're a terrible mother. You work full time. You've ignored me for your career. You have a 13-year-old daughter and you don't work. You're a loser who can't get a job. Your 13-year-old daughter is going to hate you regardless of what you do. So you might as well do whatever you want, right? They're not going to like you anyway. And the other thing about being a parent is, really, we have this delusion that it's all about us. It really isn't. There's a lot goes on to parents, but it's have nothing to do with mommy and dad. I have 2 kids. Okay, my daughter was star of the play, queen of the prom, president of class, PhD from Yale, blah, 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 college professor of the year. My son, 28-year-old dropout loser, who's now fortunately rich. But anyway, why? I'm the same parent. I was no better parent when he's a 28-year-old loser than he's a 33-year-old rich guy. You have to tell us, what did your son do? Now, by the way, my son is rich and single. So if there's any women out there, I'm looking for a daughter-in-law, right? So what did he do? It's interesting because my wife and I, we kind of wrote it off. We said, this kid's hopeless. He was 28. We're talking drop out of bad school, but dropped out. Couldn't even make good grades in a bad school. And again, my daughter was a PhD from Yale, so there's kind of a big counterpoint here. And so what happened is I just said, I don't have any stock, because I have unlimited access to inside knowledge. So if you look at my book, Triggers, 27 CEOs endorse the book. I get inside knowledge daily. So to avoid any conflict of interest or temptation, I decided I'm going to have no more stock or mutual funds for 20, 30 years. So I don't make any money. I don't lose money. I just have money in bonds. So I tell my son, look, I got this money. I give it to you. You invest it. Pay me back my 3%. Keep the difference. He just went to Austin, Texas. We bought millions of dollars of houses. They all doubled in value. He bought 4 schools. He's making a fortune, and he's happy. And he's very happy. He's having a good life now. He's very happy. He works hard. But, I'm the same father. When he was 28, you could have said I was a terrible father. 33, I didn't become a better father. I'm not a better human being. My wife's a PhD psychologist, and she'll tell you, she's been around kids who are just train wrecks, who have wonderful parents. And she's been around kids who are wonderful that have train wreck parents. So it's really not all about you. And mommy, we want it to be all about us. If I'm a good mommy, this kid's going to come out to be perfect and wonderful and everything. Maybe not. And kid maybe turn out fine, maybe they won't. There's only so much control you have. So I wouldn't. Also, your kids, like I said, I think a lot of this stuff, my mother never went to the athletic events. I never wanted her to go to the athletic events, right? This compulsive, you have to do everything. You have to go to every athletic contest. You have to go to all these shows and everything. And somehow if you don't, you're a terrible human being. I think it's nonsense. Why do you have to go to all these shows? You're just sitting there in the audience anyway, and kids not interacting with you. I never saw the value of it at all. I thought it was a total waste of time. So anyway, I never thought, why do people waste their time doing this crap? I didn't. And, my kids never seemed to hold it against me. They're both crappy athletes anyway, so maybe that's why. But anyway, my advice, as I said, my friend Sally Helgeson, we were writing a book together. What did she say? The expectations on being a mother have reached an all-time historic high in terms of the number of hours required. At the same time, the mother is expected to work 50 hours. It's not going to happen. Look up here. How about that perfect everything? Let go of all that perfect crap, that perfect mother stuff. Let it go, let it go, let it go. And by the way, the other thing I've learned in my job as a coach, it's not all about me. They don't get better because of me. They get better because of them. As a parent, you really want to believe it's all about you. It really isn't. It's just a little bit about you. It's a lot about them.
Thank you. I have just a little bit to add about the guilt trip, because I have been very guilty my whole life, born and raised in communism, as you can imagine, controlling and so on, and having a child working 80 hours a week and never being there, a lot of guilt. And again, my son was 5, and he asked me, "Mommy, do you love yourself?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Do I love myself? I'm just now turning 40 and trying to understand what that is about." And he said, "You take care of everybody, but you don't take care of yourself." And that was my turning point where God sent me an angel to heal. And, at that moment I realized, if I'm happy, if I'm healthy, this is the way he's going to be healthy and he's going to be happy. If I am stressed and all the time feeling guilty and miserable, I will not be joyous at home, and I will not be there to provide for him. So I think the most important thing is to love yourself and what you are doing.
Come on, another brave soul. All right, now the hands start going up. Right here.
Wait. Before can you share your reflections on that last question? Because you and I
Yeah, well, I have to say this funny story about Marshall first. He only went to one game of his daughter's. She was playing basketball. He went to one game, and she shot one shot and was on the wrong side of the court. Right? I thought that was the most hysterical thing. But anyway, here's what I would say that's the only game we went to. And I think what his message of talking about his kids is that you can invest a lot of time, or you can invest very little time. And the roadmap for how your kids become can be different paths, as is evident in what occurred with his daughter and his son, right? But he didn't take, he had sort of wrote his son off, and his son became an entrepreneur sort of later on in life. And so I think you can't be guilt-ridden with that. But what I always say when people ask me sort of that work-life balance question is, you own it. And once you make the decision, you be in the moment at that time. So if you're in the moment, if your decision is to be with your kids at a game, whatever, you're in the moment. If your decision is, I need to work, I need to travel for work, you're in the moment. And there's no guilt once you make that decision, because it's the right one for you. Okay?
So how do you make your voice heard when you don't believe that the leader that asked for the opinion or your input actually wants it, or you don't trust others in the room?
360 interactive, right? That's what I would say. Yeah, you change the room. And that's kind of the point with the 360, right? Is that you're talking to one individual, but that's why you have to build the partnerships. You build those allies. You have your frontline team speak the voice for you. If you're removing the roadblocks, they're talking about you. You're a champion in their eyes. So to your point, you change the room. It's not just the one leader. It's leaders all around you.
All right. Who else wants to ask a question? Right here.
I'm rolling around which question. I think the ruffle feathers question. I've been known to ruffle a few feathers on occasion, and it's very uncomfortable for me. And I'm curious from the panel, how do you deal with that discomfort? And how do you decide if it's a good time or a bad time to kind of shake things up?
I would go back to that Peter Drucker advice. My mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove I'm smart, not to prove I'm right. If you're right, but you're not going to make a positive difference, why are you talking? Don't even bother. You're not here just to talk and prove how smart you are and right you are. You're here to make a positive difference. Every decision is made by the person who has the power to make the decision, not the smart person, a fair person, a right person. Make peace with that. Change what you can change. And back to what you said, sometimes the right answer is leave. That's okay too. If you're in a situation, you feel it's a toxic situation, I'm not saying leave now. I'm not naive. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. Start looking, though. Start looking and ask yourself, how can I get out of here? How can I get out of here? And the reality is, how do you get somebody to change that doesn't care about changing? You don't. You don't. I can't do that. I was a world #1 ranked executive coach. I cannot help people change that don't want to change. You don't. Make peace. They're not going to change. Just make peace. Change what you can.
From a mindfulness perspective, we talk about courageous presence. And if you have something to say, and it goes with the executive presence, stand firm in which you believe. Stand firm, and nothing will happen to you. You know, if you really have a founded belief that needs to be voiced, you can stand firm in that. And you'll be surprised how sometimes support just appears. And it's not just your voice. You're actually speaking for others. And I think oftentimes people don't speak up. And if they would make a big difference, not for themselves, but for many.
I would just add, Erica talked about igniting your passion, and this morning I talked a lot about mission and values. And I think you have to be okay ruffling feathers when it's with your core and it really matters to you. I've ruffled plenty of feathers, trust me, and I've learned how to pick those battles on the things that are most important, that I want to make change.
I was just going to add, I didn't get to talk to you guys about the marketing yourself for success today, but the slides are in the USB, so you can take a look at those. And the only thing I would add is there's no harm in gaining alliances ahead of time as well. So that's kind of a practical tip. You know, if you know that you're going to go into a meeting and you've thought about, you know, this ahead of time, and you know that you might say something that's a little bit controversial, don't be afraid to talk about it with a couple other people ahead of time that you know might be in your corner. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. And you'll feel a lot more confident going in that way too. Next question in the back. Brian!
What's a habit, good or bad, that you can attribute your personal success to, however you define it?
I'm passionate and I am competitive. So that goes against what Marshall said today. I have been always one that wanted to win, right? So good or bad?
I can't remember what Marshall called it, but I'm a helpaholic, I think. So it can be an overused strength, but it can also be something that's very positive in terms of helping people, but it absolutely can work both ways.
This is probably not what I should say, but it's the truth. I work, and when I think I've worked as hard as I can work, I work some more. And I've always been that way. And the other thing is, I'm a true geek, and I genuinely love all the science, all the medicine. I'm just a nerd, and I love what I do. And that's the truth beyond the work, but that has to go too.
Absolutely, the passion that you feel what you're doing, you would even do it without getting paid for it. And focus, paying attention to what you're doing, kind of what you said, be there either at home or at work, and persistence and resilience.
Before I ever speak, I always do a Buddhist chant that gives me energy. People say, you're an old man, you travel constantly. How do you get so much energy all the time? I do a Buddhist chant. Would you like to learn the chant? It may not work for you, but it's nothing to harm. Everybody breathe, stop breathing. I want you all to center yourself. Take a deep breath. Center yourself. Calm your mind. The chant goes like this. There's no business like show business, like no business. I actually use that with my CEO clients. Sometimes they whine and complain. They want to go, meh, 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 meh. Poor me. I only made $35 million last year. Isn't life tough? I go, shut up. So I always go, have you ever been to a Broadway play? You ever been to a Broadway play? Did you ever hear the kid get up and say, my foot hurts? I have a headache. I'm tired. I don't think so. You know why? It's showtime. When I coach people, you know what I tell them? You take that big check, you're making 1,000 times what the kid is making. Shut up. It's showtime.
I don't know. There are so many traits, and I love how the question was asked, good or bad habits. I think we are the slaves of the habits, and most of the good habits can turn into bad habits if everything is excessive. So, closer, yeah? So basically, if I say I'm perfectionist, I'm workaholic, helpaholic, all of these are fantastic when I deliver the care for my patients. You want to have a doctor that is perfectionist. You don't want to miss that one lab in the millions that I review every year that may turn to be somebody's life. You want to have the doctor that is compassionate and, goes and beyond, the call of duty and stays up at night and forgets about her own health. But on the other hand, my family may not appreciate that. My own health will not appreciate that. So all of these traits that we are so proud about that make us stars in what we are doing can be the sword with double edge. And they can be the ones that will take us down if we are not paying attention to that balance. So I am struggling to find that balance, and every day I work at that. And that will be my advice to all of you, recognizing that these traits that have taken you where you are at the top can be also the ones that will take you down. It's that yin and yang and the duality of this world. So yeah, I love that. Good habit and bad habit. What makes you the best can make you, lose your best. So yeah, pay attention.
All right, I think we'll take 2 more questions. Who wants to go? I see some over here. I see in the back, and then I see Ellie.
Say a hand. Okay.
All right, we'll go Ellie first.
Thank you. I'm very accustomed to being a team of one most of the time, and we've talked about having your support team, mentors, sponsors. What would you say is the first step you can take when you're entering a new environment to make sure you don't have that same pitfall of always making yourself a team of one?
Sure. So, I think, what I might say is, can you reach out to someone who was in the role before and, gain insight from them and then start to build a relationship with them, right? To cultivate that may expand and use some of their connections and start to build relationships with them. But I think you have to make sort of that sort of first step to see who was in the role before you, what can you learn from them, and then go from there.
I was just going to add, being the type of person that I am, and I told you guys a very personal story this morning. I've always been, the most competitive person in the room. I've always been, kind of that go-getter, winner person. When I got sick, it taught me to ask for help. When I couldn't do even the day-to-day things in life, it was the first time in my life that I actually had to ask other people for help just to get through the day. So, Ellie and I have worked together in the past. I'm so thrilled that you're here. Find people that you trust. And I think, just knowing you, I think that might be hard for you in some of the work environments you've been in. But find people that you can trust and then just ask for help. Because the more you surround yourself with people that want to help you, the easier things will be for you.
Very similar to Mandy. I was just going to say, Ellie, it's also about keeping lifelong mentors. One of my biggest mentors is a guy I worked for at 24 out of school, and he's still a mentor today. I still can call him when I have a bad day and say, what do you think about this? How would you handle this? And so building that network, it doesn't all have to be inside work. Build a network from this team here as well.
We'll take one final question. I think, in the back, did you have a question? We can do that. We can do two more.
Ooh, wow. So a lot of successful women that I know, we've heard it many times that you have to have a thick skin and fearless and ruffle feathers and everything. But I've seen a lot of younger women that they're not taught from an earlier age to develop that thick skin. And so do any of you have experiences from when you were learning to develop that really stood out to you, where you faced something and you had to make that decision to say, no, I'm not going to let this bother me, and what was it, and how did you overcome it when you were younger?
I'll just say right off the bat, I don't think it comes naturally to anyone. I don't know anyone that it does. I think a lot of it just has to do with your life experiences. So don't be too hard on yourself if you don't have that thick skin at a young age, because it will develop over time just based on experience.
There's a great book by, I think, Don Miguel Ruiz. It's The Four Agreements, and one of the principles is don't take things personally, and that's a really powerful message in terms of reframing your experiences and reframing your brain to think about how do I build more resilience.
Same in the mindfulness tradition, we talk about non-identification. And so for me, it's less about having a thick skin, but more about not taking it personal. And I don't remember who said that. I think you were talking about that, Marshall, that people are mad at you. Well, that's their madness. They are mad. It's not, why would that affect you, you see? And so it's not about having that thick skin per se, but it's about responding differently to threats of any kind of form.
So I have a question regarding feeling safe in the work environment and also trusting your management. Feeling safe in the work environment and trusting your management. What if you don't trust your management? And what if you don't feel safe to speak up because they're not creating a sense of comfort for you as a woman to speak up? I have a lot of great words. I have a lot of things I want to say, but if I'm not trusting the people in front of me, how do you break those barriers?
My advice is maybe you don't. I mean, I'm not a believer in this. If you stand up and tell the truth, you will be rewarded. I do not believe that. People get crucified all the time. You stand up in front of somebody who you cannot trust, and you trust them, you just made a mistake. Everyone in the world is not trustworthy, everyone in the world is not good or wonderful, and everyone in the world does not have your best interest at heart. So I think it's very naive to sit there and say, how do I stand up and talk and tell the truth when I'm going to get crucified and get crucified? You will just get crucified. So my advice is don't do that. My advice is take that time and energy and get the hell out of there.
One of the things that we're working on right now at Lazy Boy is building trust. We talked a lot today about authenticity, about ensuring that people have a voice, and that's quite candidly very new to our organization. And so what I'm trying to do is work with the senior team to make sure that we're leading that trust effort and closing that trust deficit, and that we're creating that inspiration and that courage for people to have conversations. It also goes with making sure that there are points of feedback, like 360 that Erica talked about, and engagement surveys, and all of those things are new to our organization. Many organizations, large Fortune 500 companies, have some of those elements that help build the trust, but people don't just trust surveys and feedback. They trust people and relationships. And so I think Marshall's point is right. You have to find an organization where you know that the culture is one that either has potential for trust or has a strong track record of trust.
Very nice. All right. I don't see any other hands. No one's jumping up and down saying, I have one last question. All right. So I want to ask all of my speakers just to stand up. I'd love to give them a big round of applause. Thank you. All right, and I had some slides. I'm just going to go off the top of my head because I have a bunch of people that I want to say thank you to for making today possible. So obviously, every one of you guys, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. Thank you. I couldn't have done this event without all of your help, with all of your inspiration, all of your insights. And I truly hope, as I started off the meeting today, saying that you take away at least a couple of nuggets, something that you will never forget, that will be with you for the rest of your life, for the rest of your career. I truly hope that you got a little bit of that today that I was hoping for. I also want to make sure and give a huge call out to my Stan Can Design team in the back. If Brian and Libby can stand up for just a moment. Sorry to embarrass you. I promised them I wouldn't make them come up on the stage. But this team, Stan is not here today, but the three of them believed in me from the very beginning when I brought this idea to them. They put the design, they put the logo, they put everything out there to make this event as known as it was. So I really, truly couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you so very much for all of your hard work and efforts. And by the way, they were there for me any time of day that I needed them. And there were times when there was like, I was working at 11 o'clock at night and, you know, Brian and I were Facebooking each other and he was available. So if you ever need any marketing help with your business, I highly, highly recommend that team. I also want to say thank you to the Renaissance team. Brandon, Teresa is not in the room here. Austin was my original contact. They have just been phenomenal. I've gotten lots of great comments from you guys as well that this is just a beautiful, beautiful facility, and they did a knockout job. So cheers to the Reno Renaissance team. I've got Steve and Dale over there who have videoed the entire day. Super flexible, as you know, Marshall was wandering all over the room and they were trying to follow him with their joystick and remote control. So I give them huge kudos. I want to say thank you to all my sponsors again, and I want to encourage you guys when you go out to the cocktail reception, which we're going to move out there momentarily, to make sure that you visit some of the tables that they have set up out there and talk to them about their businesses, because again, I could not have done it without them as well. And last but not least, I'd love to have my mom and dad, Monica and John Schlegel. Woo-woo! The power team that has helped put all this together. So I am a business of one at the moment because I went out on this crazy entrepreneurial venture, just because that's what my passion was and because it's what I wanted to do. And I just absolutely couldn't have done it without their help today. So huge thank you, guys. I love you so much. I'm hoping I didn't forget to thank anyone. Yeah, I'm not very good at doing that normally. Actually, who I did forget to thank is every single one of you in this room for believing in this event. Many of you, I talked about it early on when it was just kind of at, the inception of the idea, and you believed in me, and I hope that it really was worth every minute of your day today. So thank you all for being here. Thank you. Now let's go have a glass of wine. Woo!